Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast. My name is Jai Gobind, and this is your channel for grace. We are here. I am so excited for tonight. We haven't done an episode of Conversations with Spirit on this channel in like months, and I have been wanting to bring this project back. And it just so happens that this is perfect timing. And I love how the universe always brings those things together. And tonight we are going to talk about psychic powers, mediumship, intuition. What is it? What does it mean? Because I know that there's a lot of people that are really interested in this topic. And I also know that there's a lot of people that misunderstand it or would love some clarity into what it all means. So we have our friend, Lyndsey Paul, here. And I'll let you introduce yourself before we go off. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
There you go. All good.
My production person had the mouse. I was like, so I'm a psychic medium and I also do healing work and a yogi. So I'm based out of Seattle and I've been doing radio and broadcasting for probably what seems like the last, since about 2012 or so. So yeah, and I've been based out of Seattle, but I also travel all over the world. I've read for people all over the world, and it's super interesting where this work has brought me. And it's just been one really exciting whirlwind adventure. And I'm just so grateful to get to do it. I always thank my clients and I'm like, thank you so much for letting me do this for you so I can live that life instead of being in that 3D reality where I'm just sort of corporate. I used to do a lot of corporate work where I'm really good at customer service. I can smile through things, but at the same time, this is what really fed my soul and nourished me. So I'm always so grateful when, people like you and your channel ask me to come on, and I'm like, yes.
It's so much fun, right? Because it's like I say this all the time to my friend Jason. I don't know if you know Jason from Ray of Light Tarot. It's he has a tarot channel here on YouTube, but we talk all the time. And one of the things we're always saying to each other is like, man, I just love that we get to do what we love for like a living. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a lot of light workers that I feel like they're being birthed, even though they're maybe in their 20s or 30s or 40s, and I've even had 80-year-olds come to me. And it's like, that was where I really started, was coaching others. And it's like, I almost felt like a midwife or like a birth coach or something, where like a doula, where I'm helping birth this new creation. And I find that's kind of what I feel like sometimes is like a death doula, or, being with people on their crossover, or finding somebody really stepping in. And I've always said this, and I've always felt like this was sort of like my divine assignment, was when people came to me and they said, I need help, really there was a doorway opening, and there was this fear of moving through the doorway, but they knew that it was open. And I was somehow like this gatekeeper where I was like, you can walk through the door. This is the door that we see. And yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God, I love that. That gave me this really beautiful imagery.
I always feel like it looks like the cosmos on the other side, and unlimited potentiality, as Deepak Chopra would say.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Let me take a moment to say hi to everybody in the chat who came in. We've got Shayna in here. Hi, Shayna. Welcome in. We've got Kim, Sarah, Nancy, Teresa, Valerie, William, Gordon, Monica, Wendy, Leanne's in here too. OBC, Chrissy, Kat, Sparky. Thank you guys so much for being here, and feel free to share this video out as well. And also make sure that if you're here live watching, that you X out of the chat and you give the video a thumbs up, because that actually helps to get it circulating. And Joan is in here too. So awesome, you guys. So I wanted to start because I feel like this whole topic of intuition and psychic powers and all this stuff can be so broad. And for me, it really begins, I want to begin at the beginning, if that makes any sense. So I wanted to ask some questions about your journey into where you are now. And the first question that I wanted to ask you was, at what age did you realize that you had this gift for seeing, as we would call it?
I always say that, I think that it's always been my reality. So it's not been something that was super different, other than I remember when I was 6, I was standing on this stairwell in my house, and my cousin was like, Earth to Lyndsey, and like making these sounds and the woo. And I knew, I was like, okay, I don't know where I was at, but I was like floating and I was somewhere else. And I knew that the reality that she was experiencing was not my reality. And that was also around the same time that like I was, learning to go follow the rules and write my name on a line. And I had a very hard time fitting into society. Like the first year in kindergarten, I went to I had 3 different teachers. I had already pushed the limits with the first one by falling asleep in her class and being, misbehaving. And then, the second class I really loved, but then we ended up, going the route of like, my mom really wanted this one kindergarten teacher who would be like understanding and sweet. So I kind of realized based off the people's impressions around me that there was a little bit of something different with me based on their expressions. And I was like always thinking, well, first I initially took it like there's something wrong with me. My brother would tease me and I was bullied and whatnot. But I started, I think, really realizing, I think too, when I started trying to follow the rules, and it was really hard for me to fit in. I always saw things so creatively, and I'm like, well, what if this situation is? So I would wake up probably from the time I could remember, maybe 3 or 4, and there would be spirits in my room. And it wasn't at all scary until about 6 years old, when my father's drinking increased and he was bringing home like attachments from the bar, and they were walking into my room. And it was, it was really scary. It started getting scary, and there was less light, and there was less happy spirits, and not as kind, and things started getting darker. And so that's where I really realized like I had this gift. And it morphed over the years. It went from being like, when I was a child, being really clairvoyant and like really seeing things physically, to more in my teen years becoming more empathic and absorbing everybody's stuff and wearing lots of hoodies and hiding from people a bit. To now where I'm like, where I'm like more, I've noticed it's morphed into like clairaudience, and now it's going into claircognizance. So it's like, for those watching it, it went from sight to like this incredible absorption of other people's emotions and feelings and pain, to then being able to hear spirit, but not be able to see it as well. And to now like just absorbing information and just knowing it. And
it's like yeah.
And I vacillate between all of those things, but I think as a child, for me, it was really the visual, and knowing that like back in the day, it was like this, you were crazy. Like that was even if you made a weird face at the wrong time. That wasn't if you were like seeing things. That was just if you were different. So I was always afraid of people doing this to me, and I was like, I'm not this. So I would just keep it under wraps. And I thought like maybe the best place for me to go would be like become an actress or a singer or something. So I thought like, oh, then I can express myself and I don't have to justify it. But that to answer your question, it was very, very young age. I remember my mom saying, Lyndsey, don't stare at them, because she knew like that I had that really intense gaze and these huge eyeballs, and I was just like looking at people and reading them already. And she was like, Lyndsey, don't stare. It makes people uncomfortable. I'm like, well, why? Like I'm looking at
right.
them.
You're like, I'm seeing, you know what I mean? You're so curious. I agree with you. And that reminds me of, when I was little, I often felt like I was the observer, and I would just, I love people watching. Like it's a very interesting thing, but it's like, if I could, I would do the whole staring thing. And it's not like a disrespectful thing. It's just because I'm so curious, like I'm observing everything that I see. Right. And I also, since I was little, I've also been very, very sensitive, like beyond sensitive. So I, one of the things I remember the last couple of times that my dad, I think it was 2 times ago, my dad came to visit. He now lives in Argentina. So I was born in Argentina. We moved to the United States, and then he moved back. But one of the things that he told me was, I always thought that your sensitivity, I mean, it was like crazy. Like I would cry. I would, you know what I mean? I wanted to hide. I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. Like the world was just scary, because I could just feel so intensely everyone else. So for me, that like empathic part is like really, really strong. And so I remember him saying, at first when you were young and pretty much like your whole life, I thought that was your weakness, but now I see that that's actually your strength. Like now I see that you're actually way stronger than I ever imagined you could be. And that was like really, really beautiful for me to have that support. But
you were able to help him like transcend his own thoughts on like what reality was. And like that could have been even one of your soul contracts, right? Is just to come in and show him it's okay to have those sensitivities. My dad is very sensitive. And I mean, I think that's where the alcoholism and the, you know, the excess, or maybe I should just call it the excess in drinking was to numb his own feelings, his own emotions. And I've been able to take this work into some really dark places because I chose him to be my father, and choosing to kind of like have that darker, seeing that, because really intuitives see the truth and they also remember the future before it happens. So sometimes that's really scary for people around them who aren't in that reality. But for us, it's like, can be lonely to not have a parent understand or have somebody around you that goes, it's okay, honey, I love you either way. And, like let's just talk about it. And like, you just need that support when you're this young child and you're still shaping your personality and who you are as an individual. It's like, and the sensitivity. My dad complained the first year I was born. I mean, he really loved hard rock music. And like classic rock was like, it's now classic rock, but at the time it was hard rock. And he was really, really into like music and speakers. And I couldn't, hearing wise, I could not deal with it. And so there was like that. And then also I'd be sensitive to the way that people said things. And if I felt like a strong urge and I couldn't describe it, I would just feel like really temperamental and get upset. Like, why aren't they listening to me? So there would be moments. It wasn't like that all the time, but the incredible sensitivity is I could tell the people around me were like, how do we just make you happy?
It's almost like, actually that leads into the next question really nicely. And the question is, do you feel like you have a mission on this planet? I know you're aware or familiar with the term light worker, starseed, all that stuff, but do you yourself feel like you are here on a mission? Because I oftentimes think that we feel like we're from another world. Like it almost feels like we're not from here. Like everything here feels foreign, right? So in your own personal way, do you feel that you are a light worker?
This is one of those like mind-blowing questions. It's funny because I kind of had a feeling you might ask it. And I was in the shower earlier, and that's when I meditate. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is where like everything is always changing and morphing for me. And I don't know if you everyone can think of one thing they thought was one way as a child that they now look at and are like, it's totally different. It could even be looking at a picture of what you thought a memory was as a child and looking at it, something's changed. And it's like, well, how did it change? Was it me that changed, or did energy actually change around the event? Did it really happen that way? And so reality, and I think that this is where, I ask people to be really open-minded, because I might take you a bit on a journey where you're like, what are you saying? But the world that we're in isn't solid. It's not, it looks solid to us. It's not, but it isn't physically solid. So being that it's not a solid thing, we are vibrating at the vibration of this reality. But when we're done vibrating at the vibration of this reality, our vibration will shift into another reality. And those realities are like at different levels, and we experience them based on where we are at. And I think that we identify so much with being physical that this world is what we can grasp, right? I can grab my lip gloss and hold it in my hand. I can hold my phone and I can type to a friend and get an immediate response. And it's so interesting. It's kind of like a time warp being here. But to kind of come back to what you were saying, it's like, yes, I have a lot of clients that come to me with the programming of I am physical. Prove to me that spirit exists. And I say, prove to me that the physical is actually in existence in the way that you think it is. And a lot of times they're like, well, how do I do that? Like, and you can't. Your consciousness is exactly where it needs to be. Your awareness is exactly where it needs to be, because you are here in this moment. And in this moment of the experience that you're having, you're present to it. Your consciousness could have chosen any other place to be, any other dimension to be, any other space to be. But for some reason, you chose right now, right here at this moment to be watching Jai and Lyndsey. Like, even if it's in the future moments when we're no longer alive, your consciousness is coming back to this moment. And so when people, they feel it as soon as they like get that, they feel it. And so, you know, to answer it, like, we're all energy, we're all vibration, and this world is just a temporary one that we're in, and when we're ready to go and our soul is ready to move forward, it will. So I think wherever we are and our consciousness is, whatever that reality currently is in that moment, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. It doesn't, you don't have to have a grand master. Like, I think a lot of us want to hear that we were a queen in a past life, or that in a future, like in this life, we're going to create the #1 book on, and it's going to conquer all. And it's like, we're going to have that one musical single that's going to change everybody but we're all, we're all in different places at different times on our soul's evolutionary path. And as a result of that, like, we're all really co-creating together based off of our different levels of vibration. And so yes, I do feel like I'm here doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, even if it's just sitting next to on the bus stop or something with somebody talking about shoes. Like, I know that seems mundane, but I know exactly that I trust in this divine intelligence, and that there's an order in everything, even if it seems like the most random thing. And I think a lot of people base their success and how they see themselves and their validation on whether or not they feel important in that moment, and whether or not other people receive it as that. But I stopped looking for that validation at some point when I realized that there is an intelligence to all of this. It's not really something that I am going to be able to force that person to take a left instead of a right, and then, you know, bump into me at that particular drugstore at that moment. Like, there's just so much more that's out of our control that's in our control. All we really have is right now in this moment. And trusting what those little nudges and those little intuitions are kind of pushing us to. Because I think we can all think of a moment where we were like, how did that happen that way? And some of us have lost that sense of wonder, which is super sad. I think that, like, we can really awaken to that just by being in the moment, like really acknowledging what's happening right now, and like all of the things that would have had to come together for that person to bump into you at the grocery store, that you haven't seen for 2 years, but you were just thinking about yesterday. Like, how did your consciousness create your day, and how did that person's consciousness create their day to cross over? And did you create that moment just by thinking of it, or was it part of something greater? So that's where I like always come in, and I'm always kind of moving through the energies of things. And because for me, it's like, I don't have to have a physical person in front of me to communicate with them. It's nice. It's nice to be able to see that there's someone there. Like, the human side of me is like, oh, there's something physical, right? Like, I still crave that physicality, but you know, it's all energy, it's all consciousness, and our thoughts bring our energy different places. So we have the ability to do more in our consciousness than sometimes in our physical body. And so that limitation can be incredibly frustrating for people as they navigate the world, especially if they're intuitive. They can think things, they can have like quickness on the other side in the spiritual realm of things. You can cross over and think something and have it be that way. You can go, gosh, I really want to see my mom. And all of a sudden you're standing in front of your mom. And this is how spirit can move around and give us different signs here on this side. But when we're in the physical, we have to agree to the contractual aspect of being an earth body in this realm, in this vibration. And there's a lot of responsibilities that our spirit, like, there's that duality where spirit is like, but I want to be free and I'm already perfect. Why do I have to put makeup on? And why do I have to look good? What is the point of this? Why can't I run down the street naked? You know?
Yeah.
I was talking to someone yesterday about being naked. They were like, I've always liked being naked. It's the natural state. And I was like, you're right. Like, you're free of, like, you're not encumbered by any of the physical matter of the world other than the body that you're in. And it was just one of those funny conversations where you realize this is that person's spirit. And then there's, you know, the paradigm of the world that we agree to.
Yeah. And there's so many things. You bring up a really good point. The way that we see the world, I think, makes a big difference. And I think for a lot of us that have had like an awakening process, or have gone through what we would call in the spiritual community, like the dark night of the soul, that leads you to like become more aware of yourself and know who you are. I think that sometimes it's hard to find the right information to sort of put it all together.
Right.
So, because I think that people sometimes misunderstand because it's like we're talking about this and we're using all these terms that to us are very natural, and it's very easy to like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I get that, you know. But how would we describe like a lot of these things that we're talking about, especially the perspective that you have on yourself and who you really are? You know what I mean? Because you were just talking about how we think we're like this physical thing, and it's really hard to separate from that, because separating from that means you have to let go of this identity that you have created for yourself that's very solid. And so when you do that, you know, when we say like we are all one, you know, when you really think about what that means, it means that like you dissolve, like you know, like you dissolve everything. It is scary.
It's a scary thought to think that you don't exist and that you're going to dissolve into this oneness. But I asked a spirit this the other day, I said, well, what happens when we dissolve into the oneness? Do we disappear? And is that it? Is it the finality? Because I read in a metaphysical book once, like, that is what we are here to do. We are here to become one, and then we move on and we become one. And I'm like, what does that mean? But you know, I'm enjoying being Lyndsey, but I know that like my avatar, my higher self is a huge energy, and only like the smallest little dimensional piece can fit into this physical body. And you know, on the other hand, do I really want to merge into that? And I would say to people who are like, oh my gosh, when I dissolve into that oneness, like what's going to happen? The spirit said to me, it was very interesting. It said, but you can come back out and you can be anything you want to be, because that's you. If you want to move have you ever had a massage and you just feel the movement of the person and you become one with that movement, and you're like, oh, I wish you would go to the left, and they move to the left, and you're like, that is exactly the spot I needed. And you feel one in that moment with that person. It's very similar to that when we merge back into source. It's a oneness, it's a synchronicity, it's a flow, but you don't completely have to disappear. But it's talking about the release of the ego, or the thing that identifies as an identity. And have you ever just said, gosh, I wish that like, and not in a way that is like, I want to obliterate myself, but couldn't I just be somewhere where nobody saw me and I could just be in this state? I mean, all of us want to veg on the couch and like be in that state where you just like, you know, somebody walks in and they're like, okay, I'm going to get something. And everybody's in this copacetic balance. And everybody's working together really, really well. It's like this transcendental experience where you're almost like out of body. You have this sense.
So what do you think got you to that place? What do you think was it that got you into like to finally like, you know, really see, I guess you could say, the truth? You know what I mean?
Truth. You know what it was? It was accepting. It was truly accepting responsibility for all of it. Being the physical, no matter what I was going through, that somewhere in this, I had agreed to this. Now, and I said, well, why would I agree to such painful experiences? And, you know, was I trying to punish myself by this? Like, you know, before you came here, you were like, that hot dog looks really good. And like, whatever, I'm just going to go like, that's going to be my parent. And Sylvia Brown often said it was so funny. She's like, you know, before you came here, you were like, I'll have a husband and he'll be a complete psychopath. And then I'll have a parent and that person will be insane. And like, I was listening to it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of true. Like, right. You have these things happen around you, external of you. And we have to remember people are co-creating. Their spirits, our energy, their consciousness, and it's co-creating with ours. But on so many levels, we are all connected. Like that is an aspect of me. And what I see reflecting back at me can either be something that I've already left behind or something that I have not accepted or integrated in my own self. So what I would say, I mean, like the short of it is like you have a physical body, you have energy body, you have a bliss body. And like we could go into the mental and emotional and all those things, but you don't have to get into that. That's just, you know, that's a lot of extra words. But there is a physical part of you that needs attention and love. And I meet a lot of people they think by being ultra spiritual, as JP Sears would say, ultra spiritual, that they think that it means not taking care of the physical, not taking care of the finances, not taking, you know, right. Transcended having a chakra or an energy center. And the truth is like, you have a responsibility to the physical body, because the physical body, guess what? Like, it's integrated with everything.
it's like that Buddha saying where like before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you're here, like you're here in the physical and you're having an experience. Like you're here to have the experience. Like there's nothing that you really have to do. This also reminds me of Dolores Cannon and her whole theory about the waves of volunteers.
Right.
And the second wave especially is the one that they're kind of like antennas, she says, and really you don't really have to do anything except just be yourself and like live your life. And this ties into what you were saying with like, you know, talking about shoes at the bus stop or something. It's like you're just by being you, that's how you bring more light to the world. And I love seeing it like that because it really takes off all of this pressure.
Yeah.
Like,
surrender to who you are in the moment. Surrender to that instead of trying to be something, trying to, you know, and basing your value off of whether or not you're successful in the eyes of others, the external opinions of others. Everything that's happening around you is happening for you, whether you realize it or not. And it may not seem that way because it's like, well, that person's having a separate experience of me. And something Sonia Choquette taught me, and this is a really simple way to just vibrate with what you want, is when you see somebody else around you getting something they want and you don't have it yet, because we oftentimes associate the physical world with you know, the items that we have here as like, oh, I have a really wonderful house and I have 5 Lamborghinis, and you know what I mean? Like that person has a Lamborghini and I don't have a Lamborghini. She said, what you really want to do is just vibrate with them, not away from them. Because a lot of times when we're like, you have a Lamborghini and I don't have a Lamborghini, you feel like somehow something has forgotten you, that you have been rejected and you've worked very hard, and you start comparing, right? There's a comparison. But in that moment you say, that's for me. And you pull that vibration closer to you. And then you bring it into your aura, you bring it into your energy field, into your consciousness. And so guess what? That Lamborghini in your future gets closer to you instead of further away.
That is such an amazing way to describe, like, to me, what I would call like the law of attraction. That was like the coolest example I think I've ever heard of like describing the law of attraction.
I always think of it like, and a yogi said this to me in India. We were sitting we're underneath these Himalayan mountains, and everybody can have this experience. Everybody can, no matter what you're thinking. I can't do that. But I was sitting and the sun had risen, and the yogi was talking about this law of alignment. And I thought, what is this? And he was saying, really, it's like once you vibrationally get on your path, no, you can do it right now. You can just vibrate in on your path, which is, I think, why a lot of people come to psychics and mediums, because they want to get into an alignment. They want to get into an alignment of health and their highest, most vibrational space they can be in the moment. And once you align, all of a sudden, all of those other things align on your path with you. They might be further ahead in your future. I mean, if we think about it linearly, like you're here and this is over here, you're still moving in a trajectory towards that, but you can make it happen so much quicker and transcend time just by aligning with exactly. Now that may mean that you need to do your taxes earlier this year. You need to clear out the closet and don't wait for spring. Start your New Year's resolution now. And maybe you don't call it a New Year's resolution, but instead you bring it on as your lifestyle, and you start embracing it that way. And then there's a bit of an alignment that happens, and then things start to happen quicker. Have you ever been in a place where everything was just out of sync and you just you ran into the wall and your hair got stuck in the window, and like there's just like so many levels of like, and then all of a sudden, like and I've had this happen too. It's like a friend says something loving to me or kind to me, and all of a sudden I'm back in this state where I feel aligned again. And so for me, love really is something that we can give back and forth to each other that's better than money. It's better than you know, even energy. It's like a form of reminding us of who we really are in that moment, beyond all of the chaos and confusion and distractions and things that are making us feel like everything is external of ourselves. But we come back into that experience of like the now. And there were a lot of quotes, and it took me a while to unpack this, but Deepak Chopra said his religion was love on a radio show like many years ago to this young boy who said, I'm being bullied at school and about my religion, and I go to a private academy and I don't believe in God in the same way everybody else does. And he says, well, why don't you just say your religion is love? And the little boy started crying and he was like, yes, that's it. My religion is love. He said, well, that's really your belief system. That's what shapes you. That's what you project out. Right. And he said, that's exactly what I love. But I don't want to say this is exactly what I am, this religion and whatnot. And we get really trapped with that spirituality and like a lot of, what they call bypassing, spiritual bypassing. We have to be in this world, experience
right. Yeah. We have to
experience beyond this, because our consciousness can go outside of our body. I mean, and the example that I would say is like the fabric of everything is that loving vibration, because love, if you take the word love away, what you're seeing is something that makes you feel aligned. It makes you feel expanded.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's like this expansive state, whereas like fear, or dark things, or things that people might consider externally scary, is like it closes in and contracts. So love is something that expands. And that's why for me, I'm like, my religion is love. So all of the religions, all of the different belief systems can be, everybody has their own feelings on things, and they're entitled to those experiences, and nobody has to believe the same thing. But I know in my frame of reference, in my scope of experience, that the way that I see things and experience things, a lot of people of all different genders and religions and backgrounds and beliefs and cultures and conditioning, they all come together and they're like, how did you know that? And it like melts away. All of the things that we think we are just dissipate when we are in spirit. We're energy together. And you can get enemies, people that hate each other, to sit with each other, just if you just bring their energy together. And you can do it under the look at Greta Thunberg, for example. Right. Fearsome 16-year-old who also really, she did what she's doing from a place of love. It was not a political agenda or religious.
I mean, you can tell by looking at her and feeling into her energy, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. This is cool. Speaking of belief systems, I think one of the things I wanted to cover tonight, or at least talk about a little bit, is this whole idea of like intuition, psychic gifts, psychic seeing, mediumship. I think that a lot of people misunderstand what it actually is, or at least they feel, like we've been talking about, they feel separate from it. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, do you feel, or do you believe that we all have these gifts as human beings? And how can someone strengthen their intuition? And how would you define it? So do you think we all have it? How would you define it? Do you think we all have it? And then how would someone like step into sort of strengthening their intuition?
Okay, so we all have it. And this is the interesting part, that people will actually debate me on this. Will prove it. Give me something physical to prove it. And it's like, this is an experience. It's not something that you're going to physically. And a lot of scientists, quantum physicists, a lot of people are trying to prove it. And they're able to prove that rhythms can match up and energy exists. And if you think one way, like Dr. Raymond Moody said, he was like, if you think of something, if you think of moving your hand to the right, the energy and the sensors follow that. And it's very similar, is that our consciousness has, we call it extrasensory in the physical. We call it abilities in the physical, but in spirit, we're just spirit. And spirit doesn't see it as being a weirdo thing. Only in the physical do we say, this is what it is. This is the world. But then all of a sudden the world changes and people start coming up and showing up with abilities. And it's starting to become a little bit of a norm. And I kind of like that a little bit, because it's like, cool, like everybody sort of has a little bit of something. And Sylvia Brown said this too, and I thought it was so funny. She goes, well, of course, when your friend gets in the car and you're like, they're pouting and they're upset, and you're like, how are you doing today? And they say, I'm good. You know that person isn't like, you just read it. You just read it. When you go to the store and like the person that is checking you out is, they're looking down and avoiding eye contact. Yeah, there's a certain amount of physical, but then something tells you that this person is heartbroken. Something tells you this person needs like you to smile and talk to them and really hit them in the heart. And you just feel like you feel drawn, or you feel this urgency. And I think that's also pause there, because guess what? That just shows that you are a light worker, and that you are a vibrational being. You're sensing another vibration external of you, by all means, that isn't you, and you're wanting to help.
Natural. I agree with you. And I think it's really a natural ability that we all have. We just think it's more complicated than it actually is.
Yeah. I have
And
a lot of people come to me and they're like,
yeah.
can I do this? And it's like, you already do. And it's just,
Right.
I know that a lot of times for people, it comes down to feeling safe. It comes down to the conditioning in which they were raised. Maybe they were told that it wasn't, it's not real. That's not possible. That's of the devil. That's, whatever limitation, but there's always a limitation and a fear before it. And if you can find that limitation and that fear, usually a light worker can help you move through it. Somebody like Jai or Lyndsey can help you move through whatever that fear is, because that's something that you are energetically holding in your field. And the first part of your field is physical, but then there's more around you. Now, let me just give you this example about sensory perception and whatnot. Is if you close your eyes and somebody walks into the room, now they're not making any noise and they're not breathing, most of us are going to sense it. And they found that aurically, like energetically, we can turn our back away from a space and have somebody walk into the space, and about 100 feet or more away, they'll sense it. So it's go ahead and raise your hand when you feel like somebody's right behind you and somebody's walked up right behind you when you sense them there. And they always say, people always go like that. As soon as they feel it, they go, oh, the person's right behind me. I can feel it. And they turn around and the person's crazy amounts and distances away, because you just sensed with your energy field that. And it's just like they found, if you look at the Global Consciousness Project, they found that consciousness, and really that's what it comes down to, is consciousness and energy. And energy changes form, and it's always changing, and your consciousness doesn't just end either. And I think that's what a lot of people are like, well, how did I know that that person was so close to me? And it has to do with consciousness. And all of our consciousness is always connecting. It's how you are picking up that that person is having a bad day, other than energetically. Just like when you look at somebody and you just know something or you feel something, like it's kind of like when you look on the other side of the road and you just feel like that energy is a little darker and there's something else, like you start thinking of maybe a horror movie that you saw a week before, like when you were a kid, and you're like, no, I'm not going to walk on that side of the street. It's listening to those little tiny quiet nudges. It's not as loud. Like when people come in front of me, they think that a spirit is going to materialize like off of Star Trek and just, turn into this thing. And it's like not that way. It's kind of like as if, just like I have a headpiece or an earpiece in here. It's kind of like hearing it sometimes, right? Like you can hear it and they're like, well, what do you see?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, what is it? So you say you're Lyndsey and you're like working on someone or reading someone. And can you give people an example of like what it is that you actually see when you're doing your reading? Because I think that helps people a lot too, to understand the whole like psychic power thing. So like, what is it that you see? I guess you could just give us an example of one time that you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because with each person, it's a little different. For example, it feels like almost like I have a computer screen or a movie screen in front of you, just like you have a cell phone in front of you. And occasionally, like the reel starts, and then all of a sudden as soon as that reel starts and I know that I'm looking right at it, and usually it's just a matter of like vibrationally aligning with it and my own little methods that I do. And everybody has their own thing. But I work with a lot of intuitives to coach them to get them to their own personal places where they can just access their abilities like seamlessly that way. But for me, I have my own little methods and I get there really quick now. I used to think I had to meditate for hours and hours. I was like, I need to meditate, but now it's different. Now I just kind of go into that place and tap in, and then boom, I have like the screen in front of me when it's visual. If it's not visual, it's almost like the screen is still there, but I hear audio. Have you ever had that happen when you're at the movie theater and like you hear the sound, but there's nothing on the screen yet? And you're like, what is going on? So then you hear it. And sometimes it's like two radio stations being crossed over each other. When you're in the car, the old knobs. And if you're in a classic car, you know what I'm talking about. Like the two radio stations are right in the middle. You can hear both voices very, very like almost like there's feedback. So there is a bit of energy that does exist that we have to navigate through. And sometimes that's our own energy. Sometimes that's the energy of people around us or in our environment. So that's why it becomes really important then to clear things around us so that we can be in that most optimal place to really tap in. A lot of times that's in your bed before you wake up. or before you step out of the bedroom and things like that. But you know, if a spirit wants to give me a symbol of, they have so many different symbols. I kind of think of it like a catalog, and they're flipping through the Christmas JCPenney's or Sears catalog, and they're
Do
like,
you think, yeah, do you think that also has to do with how much knowledge you have? So like the more knowledge that you have, the more they have to pull from to show you stuff.
Oh yeah, totally. Like the conscious, like, and I was telling somebody this today, actually, I was doing a reading, and I said, you know, I'm always learning, because one, I'm not always right with my like interpretation of symbols, but because we also have all these vast experiences, you know, rubber ducky, what does that mean to you? If all of a sudden you see up on your screen, rubber ducky, like I think of Sesame Street, then I think of bath time. And then I, you know, so the spirit is, it's almost like a game of charades a bit. Especially if they're not, in each spirit does have their own abilities, right? Like some of them are really good vocally, and other ones are more visual. They're going to give you, you know, cards or symbols or things to use, because that's the way they figured out how to merge and blend with you. And oftentimes if a consciousness comes up to me, I feel this tug in my abdomen. And then I know that there's a spirit there, and then I'm still navigating energy and processing. And I notice too that when I'm working with people, if I read into their auras, or we talk about the most, like the other things, like you know, what's going to happen monetarily or in this relationship or health wise, all of a sudden, just like you're in a room full of your family pops in and they're like, tell her to get the green car. Don't tell her to get the bread card. Tell her to get the green car. You know, and so I hear, and then I can hear it, and I'm like, okay. Or I'll feel like I'll feel spirit come up and push me, and I'm like, okay, there's spirit here, you know. So it's like they have fun with it on the other side. And that's where I think a lot of times people misunderstand or misinterpret that spirit is this very solemn, serious thing. They're very fun and playful. And if you can bring up your vibration and play happy music and dance around or do something,
I love that. Yes.
They can seamlessly communicate with you. But a lot of times people, when they're in a really heavy state of grief, for example, and they're sitting in front of me, they can say, geez, I'm really mad at my mom. She hasn't come through to me yet. Does it mean I'm not important? Does it mean that, you know, what is that? Why? And they take it very offensively because they're looking for it in the external world. The spiritual experience is within ourselves and coming into ourselves and really tapping in. And a lot of times there's dissociation, there's numbness, there's traumas, there's a death can be very traumatizing for people. So the process of grieving and processing out that pain out of it, and healing from it, and taking what you can from that experience, transforming it in the body, and not letting it weigh you down or be a buffer between you and spirit is most important, because you are spirit, you are energy. And it's kind of like grudge too. Like I can tell when people bring an energy in that is not theirs. Empaths do this all the time. They can be around somebody and feel bad for the person and then take it on. Or, you know, they absorb that, and it's very, very natural. It's quick.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Still learning how to not do it. You know what I mean?
You go, well, you come home after hanging out with your friend who said, oh, well, I'm doing good. And you're like, no, you're not. But then you spend an extra hour with them because you're like, really, are you okay? And they're not, but you absorb that in your aura.
Oh my God. Yes.
And aura is just another word for energy. It's your energy field. It's your radiation. It's like, just like a light. And I always say this is what an aura looks like to me, but late at night, especially if there's a little bit of water in the air and you look at a light bulb out on the street, you'll notice there's this radiation coming out of it.
Yeah.
Now, like you would say, oh, well, what is that? That's light. Well, that's energy coming from the bulb, and that's the two connect. But really what that is just like you are. A lot of us have just not been told that we can see them. So we stop, but at a very young age, most of us can see energy. We can feel energy. We're just moving and flowing. And you go, oh, I was playing with my invisible friend named Bob. And Bob just happens to be your grandfather's name, you know, or your great uncle's name that you never knew. Well, what does he look like? It happens to be Bob, you know? So It's like, we're always moving in and out of it. And I think everybody can access these abilities. And you know what? Your abilities are going to be different than mine. You may not have the screen pop up. You might just know things really well. You might smell or even taste spirit around you. So energy comes up and it impresses upon you, but it's up to your senses at that point to decide and navigate which senses are it's kind of hitting first. How are you processing for the day? If you're clogged up and let's just say you're an empath and you just absorbed, you know, your friend's energy yesterday, today, if you did not do any clearing with yourself or grounding out that extra energy or that heaviness, you might not be as sensitive as you would hope, because now you have this extra energy that is not yours. And oftentimes this is where I see people that are struggling with emotional disorder, mental disorder, personality disorders. They have energy in their field that is not theirs. It's, perhaps it's a spirit that's attached to them, a person that's attached to them and pulling energy off of them, or somebody giving them energy. Oftentimes really what an empath is they're healers. They're using their instruments to help people. But as soon as you say, okay, well, you are a healer, it doesn't mean you have to accept the paradigm of what exactly a healer is, but you do have to accept that this is what you're doing, because you're going to continue to do it on a subconscious level.
It's accepting that it's a gift. You know what I mean? That is a part of you.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you get to a certain point where like you just can't deny it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's when people
in India, for example, maybe you know this, they look at your chart when you're born, and they determine your name based off, most of the yogis determine your name based off of your chart.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So then you live up to your name. Like it's kind of like your whole life. You like,
and that could be a projection, but I think what was so interesting about that experience was they said, well, you were born with this gift. You can see it right here on your chart. And they looked at my chart and they said, you came in with this gift. And I said, that's what I tell everybody. I was like, that's true. That's true. And it was like, they just didn't, like, to them, they were like, well, yes, it's on your chart. Of course. Like, they're not looking to be told they're right, but you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
No, I hadn't heard about that. But the other thing that reminds me of is in the Kundalini tradition, because I studied a lot of Kundalini Yoga. Like I've done a Kundalini Yoga teacher training. I've done a couple level 2 trainings.
Yeah.
And in the tradition, you get a spiritual name that's based off of the Kundalini Yoga tradition. And so the name is actually a name from India, using the language of Gurumukhi. And so they look at your birthday. So they look at like your astrology basically and your numerology, and they give you this name. And based on that, it's like the name is like your highest potential.
Yeah.
So this reminds me of that. And so for me, it's like my name, Jai Gobind, that is my Kundalini Yoga spiritual name. Like that's where that name comes from. And I've heard that the more you use your name, the more you step into your power. Yeah. And I hands down, it's like the minute I started to like embrace, it's just a way of helping you embrace your gift. And this is what that reminds me of, the whole practice of like giving your name based on like your astrology, or, it's like your highest potential is like, you get this opportunity to like truly like step up and be your fullest potential.
Right. Well, there is this, words have vibration, right? And so this is how people can sense what you're saying without knowing it. Like we were just complaining about your sister, and the next time you see your sister, she just kind of is like she doesn't know that you talked about her consciously, but her subconscious received that energy and she knows. Yeah. And so we have to, and the intuitives know even more so. And of course, there's the words that you use are vibrational, and this is how we sense things too, is even if it's a dog barking, that there's a vibration behind, you can hear it. And listening to that, there's always communication, and mediums are like that. We look out in the world and everything is communicating to us.
Right.
The branch on the tree is waving at me, and or the way, and it did everything. Even the guy picking up the garbage that's eating a bun in his mouth, and he's like, doing it. I'm like watching everything, all like a people watcher.
If you pay attention,
yeah,
you will see that everything's speaking. Right.
And it like doesn't have to be in like the Himalayan mountains in India. Like that's a wonderful experience that I had. But on the other hand, like it could be the guy outside my window, taking the garbage away. And I'm like, whoa. And, I'll have these moments where I just feel like I'm so in that flow now, where spirit communicates to me. They tell me things too. They're like, this is going to be a question on your interview. And there's little tiny nudges that are like, think about this now. Think about this now. Or maybe you want to go to the grocery store now instead of tomorrow. And I'm like, but why? And then it's just quiet. I'm like, okay, we're going to the store. Or when I'm at the store and they're like, maybe you want 2 apples instead of 1 apple. And I'm like, no, I'm just, every time I've said no, I don't need that many apples. I get home and one of that, it cut the apple in half and it's bad inside, and I'm like, why, so listening, and like, it wasn't always easy, like, and especially with a guide, with spirit that's meant to help us or guide us. It's not always easy to listen. Now, they're not here to control us. They're not here to, intervene or interfere, but they are here to influence, and they're influencing us to the path that we said we, the things that we say that we want to do. And,
yes,
that's really helpful though, because
that's why we not spirit guides, right?
Right? Like, had I not taken that left off the freeway, and actually, this is a true story. This is horrible. I sound like I sound horribly not in my body when I say this story, but it was my mom's. Oh man, my mom, I feel her laughing at me up there. Thanks, Mom. I would say up there, but I feel like that vibration is here, but at the same time, it's that elevated vibration.
Yeah.
I was driving to my mom's memorial, and I was talking to the person who was in the car with me, and I drove off, and I was like, why did I just drive off the road? Like, why did I just drive off to this exit? And she goes, we're like 20 minutes away from the location. And I was like, did I think that the road was going that way? And I started like asking, and we were laughing, and we get back on the freeway, and this semi literally, I would have been in front of the semi, but the semi literally drove across like a couple lanes in front of me. And I mean, I felt like I was the crazy driver for a second, and then that happened, and we were just quiet for a minute. We were like, whoa. That would have been us. We would have been like, even though it only took us a little off path, it took us off path perfectly. And so trust those little things instead of getting frustrated with them and being like, oh gosh, that happened.
Right.
That's your intuition nudging you. And as far as the spirit name, I wanted to say this really quick too. In the tradition where I learned yoga and whatnot, they called them spirit names, which is very similar, right? It's like, it's basically the same thing. But like the vibration of a name is so important. And I know I've talked to so many people who have changed their name, or they come to me and they're like, they feel guilty about it. But even in numerology, I learned this. I thought it was so interesting. Your name adds up to a number, and that number can also change the way that things are. Like the location you're living in is a number. Your name is everything is a number. And if one person had been married, so funny. She had been married, and she didn't identify with that for some reason. And she was having all these issues with her finances. She was having all these issues with her business, all sorts of things. And then she changed her name. She took his name out, and it was just her first name and her maiden name. And all of a sudden things got better. Everything changed. It was like, how did that happen? Why
even they carry energy. It's like everything carries energy.
Yeah.
And speaking of energy, so Lyndsey and I are going to be doing readings, you guys, on Friday, kind of like Jason and I do them. But she's going to be doing energy readings, and I'll be pulling cards and using my my astro dice to answer questions. But a fun thing that I wanted to do tonight, so you get a little bit of an idea of what kind of Lyndsey does, is she's actually going to do an energy reading on me. And I remember when one of the first times that I was watching a Periscope live of yours, you like read my energy, and like me and Dawn, who's my husband, we were like sitting there like these staring at each other, like how does she, it was crazy. Like it was such affirmation, like in that moment of like what what we were just in awe of like what was coming out of your mouth. So I wanted to give people a little example so they know what to look for, or what they're kind of getting when we do our readings on Friday, which will be on this channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, like have at it.
Well, and I appreciate you giving me permission to read it, because that's like most important, is just making sure that I have permission to like look at you and really see you. Because just like my mom was saying, people don't like want to be stared at. It's just like when a reader comes up to you and is like, your dog's gonna die tomorrow, and you're like, no. Boundaries, like we still have to have those boundaries for our life to stay on track. So I appreciate is like opening up a bit more for me. So initially what I just want to say, when I tap into your energy, Jai, I feel like, and I might start talking a little faster because I feel like energy is moving through me, but when I look at your aura, like what I see is right here in front of your throat is green. So you're communicating through love. Green represents healing. It represents relationship. Now, behind you is this lighter white color, and also this lighter blue color kind of wraps around in front. The behind you also shows that you just went through this incredibly crazy, like spiritually purifying experience in your life. And that's something that, because it's behind you, tells me that you just moved through it. That could be also things in life in which were big events for you, and it really just merged things together. White is the color of the purity, the highest vibration. All colors come from white. And this really is somebody who can be a chameleon, who can kind of move in and out of different social realms. And of course, a channel for grace. It's a graceful energy. It can kind of shift and morph and do all of that. And then, of course, the light blue that comes and wraps around. Now, with white, I would say maybe you are also a bit of a perfectionist. That white in like really can bring you back to this point of something's not right here, something's a little off. You might see it, you might feel it, and you know it, and it's just a matter of adjusting things, which is kind of what we do when we're healing, right? We're adjusting little things. It's just like a production. It's like, this camera is slightly off, I'm just going to adjust it. But I feel like you do that energetically around people. So it's almost like you're reprogramming people. And the light blue that wraps around you in front, this is third eye, right? So this is our center for perceiving the world and receiving the world, and also receiving energy from above, from spirit. It's like the blue is a light blue, and I feel like it's turning into more of an electric blue as time moves forward here for you. So that means that you're maybe feeling a bit more telepathic. You're picking up on things people might be saying about you. You may just tap into people's states of mind right away, dreaming a lot, visuals a lot. You might even be like really drawn to color, aesthetic patterns, even decorating like home environments and finding like things might feel like they need to look right, sort of thing. But it's a very electric color. And I often see that around people who are more like working with computers and cameras and, you know, all sorts of things with wires and electricity moving through it. So you might even be thinking of getting new toys that are electrical speaking, like, you know, and then of course, in front of you, like more in front of you, kind of like the white was a bit of a bubble behind you, you have this peach in front of you. And so that's a combination of pink and orange. Pink is also very, very healing. So it's a healing space in front of you. And people might interpret, well, you're moving into that, but I think that this is you radiating it out. So you're moving forward, but you're doing so with, now this is the color of admiration. When I see peach in someone's aura, it indicates that people will admire you. They'll be looking up to you, looking at you, wanting to be you. So watch out for stalkers. And the pink is like a heart. It's a tender heart color, but because it's also combined with orange, it means that you may be a bit of a workaholic at times. And that's okay. Like, because you have a project, you have something that you're carrying with you. It's almost like being pregnant when I see this color. And it is a color of like a project that you're working on that means something very, very near and dear to your heart. Pink, because it's there's two colors that I associate with the heart: green, which you had here in front of the throat and the heart. But you also have this incredible amount of pink. It means that your heart is becoming more sensitive. You might be feeling the world more, feeling like you physically are navigating things and feeling more sensitive, like you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, and it's like somebody just comes up and pokes it, you'll feel that pain right away. But you're constantly in this flow of creativity and creating and creation and projects, and you can bring that into the physical body and create. But I also think that this is around you, with everything around you. You're really in that creative space, kind of like an artist who's painting something. Now, this is also saying, hey, go out and enjoy yourself and be a bit hedonistic and enjoy your desires a bit, because you're going to work, but you also need a little bit of play. Yeah. And I feel like your guide is like agreeing with me, because I felt like an energy come from my left. My guide's usually on the right, and very, very powerful energy moving in from the left. And it feels like a masculine energy. But when I get that energy that moves in from the left, I feel like it's like very much you already know who that is, and I don't need to describe it to you. But like I feel like this person's just showing up because it's like, I support you. You have family that is supportive of you. So I feel that lifting up from, it feels like an ancestor or like a family, a familial spirit that is with you, that's like wanting to lift you up and see you do what you're supposed to be doing. Because it feels like, you know, and this happens a lot with light workers and healers and people who are bringing in this new vibration, is there are people who like the old traditional way and want to pull you down. They want to pull you down into the tradition. And it's like, there is that fear of having to be put in a box, but I feel spirit's like lifting you up and away from that. So it's like a sweet, trusting energy that you have with spirit. I can feel that.
I love that. Everything you said was like straight on, like exactly what's going on in my life. I have definitely gone through a big transition. I moved, you know what I moved from Colorado, where I was at for 12 years, into, you know, to Portland area. And that's been like a huge transition. I am continuously like working on things. I do get like workaholic-y sometimes, because I have such a vision of like what I want. And these things become like my babies. You know, you said like this pregnant energy, like these projects become my babies. Like I'm working on creating an astrology course for beginners, you know, and like just things like that. And the whole, you know, the blue light and the electric blue that you mentioned, like I feel like that's my color. Like for some reason, like when I see that color, I'm like, whoa, like
it's like lightning. It's like that color of lightning.
It's just amazing. And I have been feeling much more sensitive. And when you said that, you know, you might be sort of feeling what your family's thinking, or what, you know what I mean? Like, I swear to God, like for the last month, all I can do is think, like, I think about family and like, you know, because there was this whole situation that that I'm involved in, like, you know, family wise, like, you know, you could say like it's family drama or whatever. But I actually haven't seen anyone. You know what I mean? I haven't seen anyone in months and months and months, or talked to anyone. But lately I've been thinking about them, and like over and over and over. And I'm like, they got to be thinking about me too.
I will say this, and it's great that you're like communicating back. I will say this, by February, I feel like there's going to be more family members reaching back out to you, because it's like, I saw the vision of a bear in my mind, which, you know, you can look at it from the spirit animal aspect of it. But I feel like what I hear in seeing that bear is the slow moving trudge and the hibernation and the slow energy. Like, I feel like there's slowly this move of energy. And then towards like February, I feel like people waking up and coming out of these like places and sort of just like, wait, what happened? Why are you, why are you gone? Like, where did you go? And there's going to be more energy behind it. But right now I feel like people are moving like molasses. And there was a spirit just touching my nose. So I was like, what the heck? I feel like there's like a grandfather here. Like, I feel like there's a grandfather that just stepped in, was like tickling my nose. And I was like, what the heck is that?
I definitely like, yes, you know, yesterday I wrote a song, and it was to my grandma. So my grandma is like, to me, is the closest thing to feeling like spirit guide energy. The masculine energy.
Was she more masculine, or is that?
I was trying to think, like, does it mean that like could be her? But because you know, when she was still alive, she was very organized. She was very loving. To me, she wasn't that masculine. But so now I'm thinking like, maybe it's not her. It could be someone else.
This feels like a very much, I will tell you exactly what I kind of feel like this. I say grandfather, but I feel like this could be like a grandfather ancestry wise, is like somebody who very much feels like the leader, or like a chief of like people. And I feel like what's interesting is I feel like there's this incredible responsibility to like be this leader. And I feel like it's like ancestrally, like I feel like, and even on the genetic side of it, it's all energy, right? Genetics are energy, and that we pass down to each other, and we duplicate that energy, and we duplicate that code. Is I feel like you've duplicated, you've been passed down a duplicate code of something that he also carried. And to me, I feel like it's like grandfather sort of thing. Like if I were to go back, and I feel like I keep feeling like there was something pretty traumatic, like that they went through, like people enforcing like a move or boundaries being put upon this group of people, and like even famine happening around him, and he was like leading them through that. It's like a very like painful experience, but he survived it and was able to lead people out of it. But I think that there was loss of life. Like that's what I'm feeling. It's like I go really, really far. But I think maybe this is also possibly through the grandmother line, like the line of the grandmother. Was your grandmother also, did she have abilities like that were?
You know, like, so it's funny because later, like she had a really traumatic childhood, but there was a point where, you know, later in life, I mean, all she did was read. and she's the one that started reading like books about metaphysics and the beyond and the other dimensions. And I think she's the one that really started planting the seeds for me without me knowing it. It was like all of the books that she had were all about metaphysical stuff. And you know, and now my bookshelf looks like hers, you know? So it's like, I really feel like she's the one that planted the seed. So she, to me, what she was that support that always reminded me that I was special. And that there was something like powerful. She used to,
I feel like she was happy to see you have it on your own terms too, like that you would discover it and open it, almost like, you know, when you were talking about a gift, like looking in and finding it for yourself without her telling you what it was. I don't know why, but I also see that something around her was very controlling. Could have been a male, like a masculine person, but
she was definitely that type. She was.
I felt like she had her own little sacred refuge where she had her like, these are my items. Like this is like I feel like part of it was hidden for a reason. Like, and it's kind of that I feel like my grandparents I had one in particular, a grandmother that was very magical that way. She didn't tell anybody her methods. And she did things that I still don't understand to this day. And I didn't really meet her. And I just knew that there was something magical about her. And I was like, why though? Why was she doing that? And it wasn't until I met somebody who was from the African diaspora traditions, the spiritual traditions of the African peoples, that he explained to me what she was doing with the earth and what she was doing. Like, it was very magical, and what she was doing was her own method.
You know what's so interesting? I just got married in Argentina in July, and somehow, so there was this aunt. To me, it's like my great aunt.
Right.
And there was this person, and they called her La Tía Negra. And that word in Spanish is like, it was like they were painting her black because they couldn't understand her. And so she was weird and different and blah, blah, blah. But what she really was the only one that was kind of like healer, you know what I mean? Like she did all the witchcraft stuff or whatever, you know. I never met her. But the way that people were treating me at the wedding, and the way that my family who did know her, like, look at me, it seems like they kind of see me and they see her in me. And I think I just remembered that. Yeah.
It's like, I'm the black sheep. I'm the odd one out. I'm the, it's like the painting the black. You know, I kept hearing the name Joe, and it may be for somebody else that is around me, but I kept hearing Joe. Is there like a particular, and I feel like this person was like speaking to someone named Joe. So I feel like if the person's here, or if they could be on the other side being spoken to, is there a Joe that is like currently around you in your life right now? No. Okay.
No.
So that I feel like might be connected to the male figure. It could be like Joe, Jose, anything J-O starting. That's what I keep hearing.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So, and that connects to him too. So if you look for it, but very much a leader, could have been like patriarchal sort of figure, very spiritual, but also like a lot of responsibility was put on his shoulders, I feel like. So, goes back a bit. And I feel like for you though, translating all of that, because I feel like it's not necessarily all about him, but the translation in this moment is like you're leading, just like he had to lead people forward through some really dark famine and times of despair and like that unknownness. Like you're doing the same thing for people here now, and you have support from spirit. And on top of that, I do feel like grandma's over there too, like definitely, but I feel like quietly smiling, like, you know, that all-knowing look. But with him, he's very like leaning in and wants you to know that like, you know, you are being supported from this side. And gosh, I can relate to this message. It's like, it's the path of a leader sometimes is very lonely until the tribe shows up. And like when the tribe shows up and they're like, we're your tribe, we're here, we need help. But it can be really, really tough to take into consider everybody's needs and everybody's wants and lead them. But I also see you being in front of people, and that's almost like right? Like you're an example that they're following that energy. It's like they're trailing after you. It's like the first buffalo in a pack. It's like there's very much like this leader quality where you have to step out and show them it's okay to walk across this field. It's okay for me to be intuitive and open and spiritual. And it's not going to be something that is painful. I feel like there's some old information genetically that says if I am who I am, if I open up and say that I am spiritually this, then I will be punished. So I feel like there's this intrinsic shame that goes along with spirituality, but in the family, like it's an old conditioning, but it's conditioned in the genetic energy and information. So you shifted that, but your family is still behind you, slowly moving that. And I feel like they're going to arrive. They will arrive. It's just going to feel like you're light years ahead. And it feels like it's going to be like, finally, I've missed you so much. But it's like at the same time, yeah, they're slowly getting there. And I feel like you creating that space behind you and in front of you, like for the people coming in and people that are not quite there yet with you, which is probably that white energy behind you too. It's like that healing that you're offering the family that you have to give to them. But it's already there. And I don't feel like it's something you have to keep contributing to or looking over your shoulder. Like just keep moving forward. This guy, he's just like, keep going. If you stop where they stop, they might stop. And so that's what I keep feeling like is just keep.
Yeah. I just, that's what I've been doing. I just been, going and kind of not looking back.
Yeah.
Honestly. But yeah, wow, that was amazing. Thank you.
You definitely have a lot of spirit there. That's super chitty chatty. Possibly grandmother side of the family, but there's definitely like a lot of chatter.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's like I can hear. I saw him lean forward, and I saw what felt like I think maybe a headdress of some sort, but like with that I was like, was that his hair? And then I said, no, I think that's like a headdress, but like with her, I can feel her kind of off to my left a bit more, which is like physically my interpretation of the energy, but where are they at? They're in this space in which we're meeting in between, right? So I do feel like you've definitely got these spirits around you, one being more of that ancestral guide, and then of course grandma, and gosh, I feel like even like aunts, uncles, like great aunts, great uncle, like people over there that are just like, they're like, he's got it, let's go, keep going. I feel like your grandma wants to play games. That was the other thing with grandma was like, I felt like like card games or like guessing games or like license plate games. There's games. Like, I feel like games. Cause she like what I think is a pack of cards and she's holding them. So I feel like that was her. And it could be like a pack of dice or something, but I feel like there's a game that she wants to play, but she's like passing it to me and she's like, here you go. Something that doesn't require electricity, something that like she could put down on a table. For me and my family, that would have been a pack of cards, but yeah, for her, it's like very much like, do you want to get to know each other? Let's play a game together. Like, that's what I feel like she's doing. Yeah.
Wow. This is so interesting.
Did she have like a really basic, like, it's almost like do you know, like a card table, how you can you could go to a store right now and get one for super cheap for like $19 and like just have a card table set up. I feel like that's what she has. Like she has this old table and it's like really simple, but I feel people sitting around it and like playing games with one another.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember anything like that.
Yeah, this must have been from her younger years. And I see also younger men there. So your grandma definitely had suitors, like people who liked her. Very beautiful, very, very like, and it's funny because she goes from looking like grandma to being more young again. And I feel like she definitely had a fiery light there inside of her. But I mean, I do feel like there were a lot of people that kind of wanted to be a part of her life, and
she was like, very independent. I think I think she was very independent, and so
she had that light of the party, where that one person you're like, wow, like you're looking at them and it's just like they're sparkling or something, and people just saw that around her. And I do feel like there was a point though, where she like dedicated to family, but I do still feel that independence and like teaching others in the family to be independent. It was like important to her. Yeah. But with her, I don't feel like she has a message other than, hey, I'm here.
I know, I always feel her, but yeah, that's why I brought her up.
Yeah, I feel like she definitely has a lot more to say, but I feel like she's like very graceful because she's kind of just like stepping back, like, okay, this is what I'll say for now.
Someone else can take over.
I feel like, you know what is funny, because I feel like the chatter's happening behind her and she's like preventing more spirits from stepping. It's almost like she's like the bouncer. That's what she's doing right now. She's bouncing people in and out so that like this is like, I guess it almost feels like she's the guide in so many ways. And this spirit here was meant to be the primary talker. And like she was like, no, I got the riffraff in the back. Like, don't worry, go ahead, deliver them. Like, that's what I feel like. Like she's like, it's cool, I got it. I've got it all under control. Sometimes spirit, like I ask them to say things separately, because they'll talk, if they know each other and they love each other, they'll talk over each other. And it is so distracting when you're like seeing things and hearing things. All of a sudden to have like 5 spirits talking over each other. And I've had people in front of me go, well, that's Uncle Joe, or that's Uncle Jack, and that's, you know, Johnny, and like, you know, that's it. And they're bouncing around and I'm like, I was like, but I just say to, you know, most people when I'm having a session with them, I just say, hey, like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in this session. I can only tell you what's happened in multiple other sessions. And it's a conversation between you and I. I, of course, don't want anyone to ever feed me energy or information, because it does impede the energy that they're giving me and what I'm receiving. But on the other hand, gosh, I've had people sit in front of me like frozen in fear and panic, and like, again, the spirits come through on that vibration of love and joy and happiness. So you know, if you sit with a medium, or when you sit with a medium, because there may be somebody in your family, and it might be you because you're watching this channel, you will find that there's nothing to fear. Again, it's just all love. And if you ever feel like there is something heavy around you that doesn't align with that, then you just invoke that love. You just ask it to come be around you. You know, and I always say the highest vibration possible, come down around me, surround me with my guides, my loved ones, my angels, my light beings, and just bring that vibration up. Because as soon as you do, that other stuff just dissipates out. The fear goes away. It just melts right away.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. So before we go, where if someone wanted to work personally with you, where would they find you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yes. So my website is the best place. My username everywhere is also the same. My website is lyndseypaul.com. I'm going to spell it because for me, this is really, really simple, but LYNDZ and then the word Paul, PAUL.com. And Lyndsey Paul at Lyndsey Paul is my name on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, other like Twitter. Gosh, there's other ones, I think like it is. But yeah, Instagram, did I say that? So Lyndsey Paul is where you can find me everywhere. But if you still don't know how to find those things, just come to my website and click the buttons on the first page. And yeah, I have lots of fun things that I do and try to keep on top of as well that I find really, really fun, kind of like Jai. And thank you so much, Jai, for having me on your channel.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is debuting me since I've been like dragging my feet on that.
Oh, it's all good. I like divine timing, man. I don't ever want to force things.
Oh yeah. And I trust in that divine timing. It was funny. I was just talking about YouTube like 2 weeks ago, and then you messaged me.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm so excited about Friday too, where we're going to be doing readings. I'll be posting more about it in the next couple of days, but make sure if you guys want to be in on like what's going on the channel. I saw someone saying that you didn't get a notification. I have a Facebook group called Channel for Grace Soul Tribe, and I always post on there before I'm about to go live the day of, like what's happening that night, if there's something going on, so that you know the time and everything. And I also post on my Instagram, and everything is Channel for Grace. It's channelforgrace.guru is the website, Channel for Grace on Instagram. And then
she's really good at notifying you. She's really, really good. So all you have to do is just show up, be in the right space at the
Yeah.
right, like just
Yeah.
click the like or the join button and you'll get the notifications.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And definitely, if you, I know there's a lot of new people, definitely subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be bringing more of this sort of interview podcast style show, and we call it Conversations with Spirits. And I already have somebody in line next that I'm going to interview that I'm really excited about, but I'm going to keep that a secret until it actually happens. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Lyndsey, and sharing with us everything that you know. And it was just a really beautiful conversation that we had.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you everybody for showing up and supporting Jai and me on the live. I totally appreciate it, you guys. I love you guys.
And we'll see you Friday.
Bye.
Bye.